I can't wait for that old bastard to die so we can finally dump his fat cow of a daughter. That's what I heard my son-in-law say to his mistress on Christmas Eve, right in my own house, while my daughter was in the kitchen baking his favorite pie. They laughed together like it was the funniest joke in the world. My hands shook with rage, but I forced myself to smile and began planning the revenge that would destroy him. If you're watching this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. This is my story. That Christmas Eve started like any other at Willow Creek Ranch. The Montana sky was gray and heavy with the promise of snow. I had spent the morning helping my foreman, Earl, stack firewood by the main house while the smell of pine and roasted chestnuts drifted through the cold air. At 67 years old, I still loved working with my hands. It kept me connected to the land my grandfather had first settled over 100 years ago. My daughter, Beth, had arrived the day before with her husband, Derek, and their 5-year-old son, my grandson, little Charlie. Watching that boy run through the snow, chasing after our old border collie, made my heart swell with a joy I hadn't felt since my wife passed 3 years ago. Beth had met Derek at a charity gala in Denver 4 years back. He was a real estate developer, charming as a snake oil salesman, with a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos. I never fully trusted him, but Beth was 32 and had always been a dreamer. She saw a prince where I saw a con man. The wedding had been beautiful. I walked her down the aisle at the little chapel in town, the same one where I had married her mother 40 years before. I bit my tongue and hoped I was wrong about him. I wasn't. That afternoon, while Beth and her best friend Monica were busy in the kitchen preparing the Christmas feast, I decided to grab a bottle of wine from the cellar beneath the old barn. The cellar had thick stone walls that kept everything cool year-round. As I descended the wooden stairs, I heard voices coming from the small storage room at the back. I stopped. The door was cracked open, and I recognized Derek's voice immediately. "Baby, I promise, just a few more months. The old man can't last much longer. Look at him, he's practically a corpse already." A woman's voice responded, a voice I didn't recognize at first. "But Derek, I'm tired of waiting. You said by now you'd have the ranch signed over. What's taking so long?" Beth is more stubborn than I thought. She actually loves this dump. But don't worry, I've been working on her. Once Robert kicks the bucket, she inherits everything. Then I convince her to sell. We split from this frozen wasteland, and you and I start fresh in Miami with $10 million. The woman laughed. "And what about Beth? What about the kid?" Derek's voice dropped to a cruel whisper. "You think I actually want to stay married to that fat cow? She was only ever a means to an end. Once I have the money, I'll file for divorce so fast her head will spin. I'll make sure she gets nothing. My lawyer's already working on it. What about the boy? Charlie? Please. He's her problem, not mine. I never wanted kids anyway. I just played along because the old man seemed to care about having a grandson to carry on the family name. Pathetic, really." My blood ran cold. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing. Every word was a knife twisting in my chest. The woman spoke again, and this time I recognized her voice. Monica, Beth's best friend since college. The woman who had been her maid of honor. The woman who was currently upstairs helping my daughter prepare Christmas dinner. "When can I stop pretending to be her friend?" Monica asked. "It's exhausting, Derek. She's so needy and boring." "Soon, baby. Soon. Just keep her distracted. Make sure she doesn't suspect anything. I need her to sign one more document, and then we're home free." I heard the sound of kissing, and I thought I might be sick right there on the cellar stairs. I forced myself to move quietly back up, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped the wine bottle. The cold Montana air hit my face as I emerged from the barn, and I stood there for a long moment, staring at the house where my daughter was happily cooking, completely unaware that her husband and best friend were planning to destroy her life. I wanted to storm inside and beat Derek senseless. I wanted to drag him out by his collar and throw him off my property, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. A man like Derek had probably covered his tracks. If I confronted him now, he'd deny everything, and Beth would think I was just a paranoid old man who never liked her husband. No. I needed proof. I needed evidence that would be undeniable. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked back into the house with a smile plastered on my face. Beth looked up from the stove and beamed at me. "Dad, there you are. Can you believe Derek offered to help set the table? He's been so sweet today." I looked over at Derek, who was arranging silverware with an expression of false domesticity. He caught my eye and nodded respectfully. "Robert, good to see you up and about. You're looking well." It took every ounce of self-control I had not to wrap my hands around his throat. "Thanks, son," I said, the word tasting like poison on my tongue. "Just went to grab some wine for dinner." Monica emerged from the pantry carrying a basket of rolls. She smiled at me warmly. "Mr. Mitchell, you have such a beautiful home. Beth is so lucky to have grown up here." I nodded, studying her face for any sign of the betrayal I now knew lurked beneath that friendly mask. She gave nothing away. She was a better actress than I would have guessed. Dinner was torture. I sat at the head of the table, watching Derek compliment Beth's cooking, watching Monica toast to friendship and family, watching my daughter glow with happiness while her entire world was built on lies. Little Charlie sat next to me, chattering about the presents he hoped Santa would bring. I ruffled his hair and tried to focus on his innocent excitement instead of the rage burning in my chest. After dinner, Beth pulled me aside in the hallway. Her eyes were shining. "Dad, Derek has been talking about maybe moving closer to the ranch. He thinks Charlie should grow up knowing this land. Isn't that wonderful?" I forced a smile. "That sounds nice, sweetheart." She hugged me tight. "I know you two got off to a rough start, but he's really trying, Dad. He loves me. I can feel it." I held her close, my heart breaking. How could I tell her? How could I destroy the happiness she thought she had? That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat in my study with a glass of whiskey and stared at the fire. The flames danced and popped while I turned over my options in my mind. The next morning, I made an excuse about needing to check on some equipment in town. Instead, I drove 2 hours to Billings and met with a man named Frank DeLuca, a private investigator I had heard about through an old friend. Frank was in his 50s, ex-FBI, with a face like weathered leather and eyes that missed nothing. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, taking notes in a small spiral notebook. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "I've seen this before, Mr. Mitchell, more times than I'd like. Men who marry for money, who see a woman as nothing but a pathway to wealth. They're usually sloppy. They think they're smarter than everyone else, and that arrogance is their weakness." "Can you find proof?" I asked. "I can find anything, but it'll take time, and it won't be cheap. I don't care about the cost. I care about protecting my daughter." He shook my hand firmly. "I'll be in touch." The weeks that followed were agony. Beth and Derek returned to Denver after New Year's, and I had to pretend everything was normal during our weekly phone calls. Beth sounded happy, talking about a vacation Derek was planning for their anniversary, about how well his business was doing. I knew better now. Frank had already sent me his first report. Derek's real estate company was a shell corporation, deeply in debt and facing multiple lawsuits. The vacation he was planning would be paid for with money he was secretly siphoning from Beth's trust fund, the one her mother had left her, the one I had thought was protected. But there was more. Frank had dug into Derek's past and found a trail of broken women stretching back 15 years. A first wife in California who had mysteriously signed over her house to him before their divorce. A fiancé in Arizona whose elderly father had died under suspicious circumstances, leaving everything to her and then to Derek. A pattern of predation that made my stomach turn. In February, Frank called me with the news I had been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. "I've got him, Mr. Mitchell. Photos, recordings, financial documents, the whole package. He's been meeting with Monica regularly at a hotel in Denver. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. And I found something else." "What?" "He's been working with a lawyer to have Beth declared mentally incompetent. They're building a case saying she's unstable, depressed, unable to manage her own affairs. If they succeed, Derek becomes her legal guardian. He'd have control over everything, including your ranch when you pass." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. "He can't do that. Beth is perfectly healthy. Doesn't matter what's true. Matters what he can make a judge believe. And with Monica backing up his claims about Beth's mental state, it could work. I drove to Denver the next day. Beth was surprised to see me. She opened the door of her townhouse with a puzzled smile, little Charlie clinging to her leg. "Dad, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?" I hugged her tight. "We need to talk, sweetheart. Just you and me." She sent Charlie to play in his room and led me to the living room. I sat her down and took her hands in mine. "Beth, what I'm about to tell you is going to hurt. It's going to hurt worse than anything you've ever felt. But I need you to trust me. I need you to believe me, even when every part of you wants to deny it." Her face went pale. "Dad, you're scaring me." I pulled out the envelope Frank had given me and spread the contents on the coffee table. Photos of Derek and Monica together, holding hands, kissing in a parking lot, entering a hotel room, financial documents showing the embezzlement, transcripts of conversations Frank had recorded. Beth's hands trembled as she picked up the photos one by one. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't make a sound. She just stared at the evidence of her husband's betrayal with an expression of shattered disbelief. "This can't be real," she whispered. "Derek loves me. Monica is my best friend. They wouldn't." I heard them myself, Beth. "Christmas Eve, in the cellar. Derek called you a fat cow. He said he never loved you. He said he was only waiting for me to die so he could take everything." She shook her head violently. No, you're lying. You never liked Derek. You're making this up because you want to control me, just like Mom always said you would." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Your mother never said that. Maybe not out loud. But I saw how you were with her, how you had to be in charge of everything, how she couldn't make a single decision without your approval. I promised myself I would never let a man control me like that. Beth, that's not what this is. I'm trying to protect you." She stood up abruptly, knocking the photos to the floor. "Get out. I want you to leave." "Sweetheart, please." I said, "Get out." I left. What else could I do? I drove back to Montana, with her words ringing in my ears, wondering if I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Beth stopped returning my calls. When I tried to visit, Derek answered the door and told me I wasn't welcome. He smiled the whole time, that same snake oil smile, knowing he had won. The town started talking. Somehow, word had gotten out that I had accused Derek of cheating with no proof. People looked at me differently when I went to the hardware store or the diner. I heard the whispers behind my back. "There goes crazy old Mitchell. Lost his wife, and now he's losing his mind. Trying to destroy his daughter's marriage because he can't let go." It was the loneliest I had felt since Mary died. But I didn't give up. Frank kept digging, and what he found made me realize that Derek was even more dangerous than I had thought. He had done this before, 3 times. 3 women, all from wealthy families. All ended up divorced and destitute. One had died by suicide 6 months after the divorce was finalized. And now he was working on a 4th victim, my daughter. In March, Frank handed me the final piece of the puzzle. He's been forging Beth's signature on transfer documents. I've got an expert who analyzed them. They're fake. He's been slowly transferring assets out of her name and into offshore accounts. By my estimate, he's already stolen close to $2 million. That's a crime. A federal crime, actually. Wire fraud, forgery, theft. Combined with what he did to his previous wives, we're looking at serious prison time. What do I do? I know a prosecutor in Denver. Owes me a favor. Let me make some calls. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Beth. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Dad, I need you." I drove to Denver in record time. When Beth opened the door, she collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you." She told me everything. She had found the forged documents herself while looking for their tax returns. She had confronted Derek, and he had laughed in her face, told her she was worthless, that no one would believe her over him, that if she tried to divorce him, he would make sure she never saw Charlie again. She had called Monica in tears, looking for support. Monica had laughed too. "That's when I knew," Beth said, her voice hollow. "Everything you said was true. My whole life has been a lie." I held her while she cried. I told her she wasn't alone. I told her we were going to fight. The trial began in September. It was covered by local news, and the courtroom was packed with reporters and spectators. I sat in the front row next to Beth, who held my hand so tight I thought she might break my fingers. Frank's evidence was devastating. The photographs, the recordings, the financial documents. The testimony from Derek's previous victims, 2 women who had flown in from California and Arizona to tell their stories. Derek's lawyer tried to discredit everything. He called me a controlling father who couldn't accept that his daughter had grown up. He called Beth unstable and emotional. He called the evidence fabricated. But the prosecutor was relentless. She played a recording Frank had captured just 2 months earlier, Derek talking to Monica about their plans to finish what they started. Once she signs the last document, we're done. The old man's ranch is worth at least $8 million. Add that to what we've already taken, and we're set for life. Beth can rot in whatever hole she ends up in. I couldn't care less. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel for order. I watched Derek's face go from confident to pale to panicked in the span of seconds. Monica was called to testify. She tried to deny everything, but when the prosecutor showed her the hotel receipts, the text messages, the photos, she broke down on the stand. She admitted everything. The affair, the conspiracy, the plan to destroy my daughter. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Derek was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Monica got 5 years for conspiracy and fraud. I watched them led away in handcuffs, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Outside the courthouse, Beth stood in the autumn sunshine, with little Charlie in her arms. Reporters surrounded us, shouting questions. But I ignored them all. I only had eyes for my daughter. "It's over, Dad," she said, tears streaming down her face. "It's finally over." I hugged her tight. "Let's go home, sweetheart." We drove back to Montana that same day. Beth sat in the passenger seat of my old truck, watching the mountains rise up to meet us as we crossed the state line. Charlie fell asleep in the back, clutching a stuffed bear I had bought him at a gas station. The ranch was exactly as we had left it. The snow had melted, and the fields were green with new growth. Earl came out to greet us, his weathered face breaking into a rare smile. "Welcome home, Miss Beth. Good to have you back." That night, we sat on the porch and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beth leaned her head on my shoulder, and for a while, neither of us spoke. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you, Dad," she finally said. "I was so desperate to believe that someone could love me that I couldn't see the truth right in front of my face." "You have nothing to apologize for. He fooled a lot of people. What matters is that you're free now." She was quiet for a moment. "I keep thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't heard them in the cellar. If you hadn't fought for me. I would have lost everything. I might have lost my son. That's not going to happen. You're stronger than you know, Beth. You always have been." She looked up at me with wet eyes. "How do I move on from this? How do I ever trust anyone again?" I thought about her mother, about the 40 years we had shared, about the love that had sustained us through every hardship. You take it one day at a time. You lean on the people who love you, and eventually, the pain fades. It never goes away completely, but it fades enough that you can see the good things again. Beth nodded slowly. "I want Charlie to grow up here, on the ranch. I want him to know what real family looks like." I'd like that too. The months that followed were a healing time. Beth threw herself into ranch work with a determination that surprised me. She learned to ride horses, to mend fences, to manage the books. She started talking to the lawyer about officially transferring the ranch into a family trust that would protect it from any future predators. Charlie thrived in the open air. He followed Earl around like a shadow, learning to care for the animals, to respect the land. Watching him grow reminded me of Beth at that age, full of wonder and curiosity. One evening, about a year after the trial, Beth found me in the barn, brushing down my old mare. "Dad, there's something I want to show you." She led me to the hill behind the house, the one with the view of the entire valley. Mary and I used to sit up there and watch the stars. I hadn't been back since she died. Beth had planted a garden there, wildflowers, mostly, but also a small rose bush. Mary's favorite. In the center was a stone bench with an inscription. For Mary Mitchell, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother, your love lives on in everyone you touched. I couldn't speak. I just stood there, tears rolling down my cheeks, while Beth held my hand. I wanted her to have a place here, Beth said softly. A place where we can remember her, where Charlie can learn about his grandmother. I pulled her into a hug. It's perfect, sweetheart. She would have loved it. We stayed up there until the stars came out, talking about Mary, about the ranch, about the future. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. Life at Willow Creek Ranch has settled into a comfortable rhythm. Beth has become a partner in every sense of the word, not just in the business, but in the daily life of this place. She's found a strength I always knew she had, but that she needed to discover for herself. Charlie is 7 now, tall for his age and smart as a whip. He calls me Grandpa Bob and insists on helping with the morning chores before school. Last week, he asked me to teach him how to whittle, the same way my father taught me 60 years ago. I won't be around forever. I know that. At 68, I can feel the years in my bones more than I used to, but I'm not worried anymore. The ranch is in good hands. The family name will continue. And when I finally go to join Mary, I'll go knowing that I protected what matters most. The sweetest revenge wasn't watching Derek get led away in handcuffs, though I won't pretend that didn't feel good. The sweetest revenge was seeing my daughter stand tall again, seeing her reclaim her life, seeing her become the woman her mother always knew she could be. If you're watching this, and you're in a situation like Beth was, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. Predators are skilled at what they do. They know how to find your weaknesses and exploit them. But you are stronger than they want you to believe. And there are people who will fight for you if you let them. Never be too proud to ask for help. Never be too scared to trust the people who love you. And never, ever let anyone make you feel worthless. Because you're not. You never were. Thank you for listening to my story. God bless you and your families. And remember, the truth always comes out in the end. It might take time. It might take patience. But justice has a way of finding those who deserve it. This is Robert Mitchell, signing off from Willow Creek Ranch. Stay strong out there.